The following program contains scenes some viewers may find disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Come with us now as we investigate the mysterious fires of spontaneous human combustion. View the very bizarre collections in the Fragonard Museum. Listen and learn from the strange story behind a famous urban myth. Delve into the subject of the latest UFO research and see for yourselves the strange objects known as alien implants. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Jay Robinson. In this episode, we are arming ourselves for an expedition to bag big game. We will attempt to track down the most elusive subjects ever captured on camera. Our quarry is the unusual, and its domain is the realm of the unknown. Join me as we hunt for stories that are truly beyond bizarre. Fire can be a friend or an enemy. To meet our demise in flames is one of the most feared ways of dying. However, within the last few hundred years, and for possibly longer, people have burned to death in a most mysterious fashion, a bizarre kind of burning that starts from within. Larry Arnold has studied and documented over 400 cases of spontaneous human combustion.
Spontaneous human combustion is the phenomenon and the ability of a human body to actually burst into flame and burn more completely than normally a crematorium would achieve. The historical exploration of spontaneous human combustion actually goes back several centuries. Dickens wrote about such a scene in his novel Bleak House. Now, Dickens was taken severely to task for invoking something so impossible as spontaneous human combustion. But the irony is that Dickens, a novelist, got his science right.
From its discovery until today, man has had a love-hate relationship with fire. The evil and the wicked were burned at the stake. Under control, fire is beneficial, but out of control, horrific. Generally, all fires, controlled or uncontrolled, with an external source of ignition. This is the case with spontaneous human combustion. Reportedly, people have burst into flames and their bodies burned to ash, with no source of external flame in evidence. One notable instance of spontaneous human combustion is the case of Dr. John Bentley in 1966. On the morning of December 5th, a utilities meter man discovered the scene of the doctor's demise. All that was left of the doctor was his nearly untouched foot, still in his bedroom slipper.
We are told by scientists who have experimented on the effects of fire upon a cadaver that in a retort, the skeleton will burn to powder only when the temperature is in excess of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 hours.
How could anyone survive a bout with spontaneous human combustion? Jack Angel is one man who survived his alleged spontaneous combustion incident. In November of 1974, he fell asleep and awoke the next morning to find his right forearm was burned to a crisp. The doctor who treated Mr. Angel reported that the burns were internal in origin and seemed to burn from the inside out. While Jack Angel lost his arm and had very strange burns upon his chest, other supposed survivors have no visible marks whatsoever.
Science used to believe that all cases of spontaneous human combustion were fatal. How else could you survive becoming a human fireball when your body was burned to dust? What we have found in our research is an incredible subset of victims, people who have survived partial self-immolation or going up in smoke, and who have lived to tell their incredible tales.
Peter Jones is a quiet man. He has talked extensively with Larry Arnold about his surviving a claimed spontaneous combustion incident.
At the time, I was getting ready to go to work in the morning, and I had gotten up. My wife was still in bed, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed just getting dressed, and I had leaned over to put my...
And smoke seemed to erupt from his legs. He was just sitting in a cloud of billowing smoke. He was surrounded by smoke.
And she was patting on me and trying to, like, out and hit me on the back and the legs.
I thought his were on fire, the bed was on fire.
And then I jumped up and I looked under the blanket. I thought, blankets or something were on fire, or the bed, and I looked looking under the bed and the mattresses and everything. We couldn't do anything, and then the smoke just dissipated.
If I wasn't there, I wouldn't believe it either. I would not be there. If I had not if anybody told me this story, I would not be there.
Survived his supposed close call with the fires from within. However, he was soon to have a second encounter.
That afternoon, coming home from work, I was driving my car and pulled up to a stop and had my hands up on the steering wheel, and all of a sudden my arms just burst out of smoke again. Smoke just pouring from both arms and filled the inside of the car with smoke. I was rubbing my arms, trying to, I don't know whether I was trying to stop it or what, but, trying to figure what it was. And as quickly as it started to stop, maybe 20 seconds or something like that, and then I just drove home.
In a typical structure fire, heat rises.
In classic spontaneous human combustion, however, just the opposite is more likely to occur.
The incident comes from a Miss Kay Fletcher, unable to be interviewed on camera. It allowed us an exclusive first-time telephone interview.
And I felt an energy kind of moving, traveling up the left side of my back toward the shoulder. I said, "Mike, I think I'm on fire." He started kind of furiously and quickly and trying to put whatever it was out.
Kay and Mike struggled to find the source of the smoke. It quickly dissipated, leaving only a puzzling red welt, which vanished less than 2 hours later. The stove and other appliances were off. There were no external sources of ignition to answer this mystery.
When my husband and I were finally brave enough to talk about this, he said that when he was in high school, he worked at a funeral home, and he said they had a crematorium where they would dispose of bodies. He said that odor was unmistakable, and it was exactly like what he smelled in our kitchen that day.
If you are wondering whether you may suddenly combust, Larry Arnold offers some pointed advisories.
We believe that people who are classic type A personalities, who are prone to get hot under the collar, whose temperament expresses fiery rage and red-hot anger. Those people are the type more likely, it seems, statistically, based on research, to become victims of spontaneous human combustion. So keep your cool. It can pay off.
In France, shortly before the Revolution in 1789, it was fashionable for sophisticated hosts to take pleasure in shocking their guests with a peek at their cabinets of curiosity. These cabinets often contained gruesome examples of some monstrous biological rarity. One man was renowned for his artistry in displaying these bizarrities. His name was Honoré Fragonard. We are all familiar with the normal types of museums found around the world, but there are occasionally some lesser-known but very bizarre museums that seem to exist somewhat beyond the mainstream. The Fragonard Museum is one amazing example. Honoré Fragonard was an 18th century French anatomist. He directed one of France's first veterinary colleges outside Paris. His methods of dissection and preservation were very advanced for his day. Indeed, Fragonard was a gifted scholar of the human form in intimate detail, and although many contemporaries respected him, others believed he was mad. Fragonard seemed to take a perverse joy in his anatomical and biological rarities and mutations. One can plainly witness the evidence of a very curious mind. An artist fascinated by the bizarrities of nature. To Fragonard's studio came the oddest examples of pathological animal mutations. This two-headed cow-calf was of great interest, for it had lived this way for a good time after its birth. Fragonard's collection provides mute testimony to this era of curiosity. It seemed that every body part was too precious to waste. This fetus with fused lower limbs was called La Sirène, or the mermaid. Horses, of course, were very important in the 18th century, and a large portion of the collection is dedicated to these creatures. This preserved foal was a victim of hydroencephalism, or water on the brain. This huge globe of calcified minerals is actually a horse's gallstone, and over 12 inches in diameter. Dr. Christophe de Gers is the present-day curator of the Fragonard Museum.
During the 18th century, anatomy went through a revolution, a time when great minds approached science.
A massive tapeworm removed from its fatally affected victim is quite a monster to share one's body with.
The parasites fascinate people. Even today, when researchers disagree about a parasite, they must come here to find the answer.
Fragonard excelled at one thing in particular, the sculpting of actual human flesh and bone. And it was these frightening works of art that earned him his most bizarre reputation. Some of these works are almost entirely defleshed, showing the inner workings of bone, tendon, and sinew. These strange items he dubbed écorchés, or skinless.
He was a formidable artist. In Man with Mandible, see the twisted ears, the diverging eyes, the chiseled lips, the menacing look. It presents an enlarged red heart. It stands out, an artistic interpretation of anatomy.
Fragonard would elaborately and almost theatrically pose his creations. This type of work shows how dramatically Fragonard tried to combine both art and science. But alas for science, Fragonard never wrote about his techniques, and what we know about his mysteriously effective methods is only guesswork. Perhaps the single most bizarre piece in this quite bizarre collection is the work known as the Horseman of the Apocalypse. This straight-backed rider poses as if holding the reins and a whip and appears to be frozen in mid-stride. Is unsettling in appearance, almost too shocking to be viewed as art.
The écorchés are theatrical pieces, showcasing death. They exist to shock the public, as was the purpose of the Cabinets of Curiosity, in a spirit of challenge of society's principles prior to the French Revolution.
There is a legend that perhaps the rider of the horse was a deed of beloved of Fragonard's, exhumed after death and given immortality as an écorché.
These are real bodies, worked, sculpted, dissected, and mummified. Flesh, bones, veins, arteries, injected with wax or plaster. This is a museum's museum. Nothing has changed in 100 years.
But Fragonard suffered great challenges and indignities for following his fervor. His contemporaries, as well as the head of the school, had grown afraid of Fragonard. After nearly 40 years, he was dismissed from the veterinary college. Fragonard went on to create his curiosities for a select few of the European elite. Fragonard died in 1799 on the eve of a new century, without descendants to watch over his collection. But fortunately, they are here today for all to come and see and experience. Artistic, scientific, and certainly beyond bizarre. As children, most of us have sat around the campfire or darkened bedroom with our friends, telling ghost stories, and these tall tales would gain substance with each successive account. An urban myth is a local or even regional legend or story that over time and retelling has become nearly accepted as fact. But there is a fine line between myth and reality, as you'll soon see. San Antonio, Texas is the site of one of America's most perplexing and mysterious urban myths. It contains the elements of a ghost story combined with continuing supernatural occurrences. Our story begins here, where the Villa Main Road and the Southern Pacific Railroad tracks intersect. Dosha Williams is the author of several books on Texas history and supernatural happenings.
The story in various versions has been told for a long time that a busload of young school children were leaving San Antonio late one afternoon on a very gloomy October afternoon.
The bus driver's route took him down Villa Main Road to where it intersects with the Southern Pacific Railroad tracks. Attempting to cross, the driver stalled the bus on the tracks. The basic story has variations. Some claim it was a church bus instead of a school bus. And the story has been set in the 20s, 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. The age of the children in the bus remains in dispute also.
The story goes that ever since the freight train school bus accident, the spirits of the children who were killed have clung to this particular spot. And if a car parks some distance away and the gears are put into neutral, and even though it's a slight uphill road, the car will suddenly start moving as if unseen little hands are pushing it along to be sure it will go over the tracks safely and not stall on the tracks, as the school bus did that very tragic October afternoon. And people often dust the back of their vehicles with talcum powder or cornstarch or flour, and what happens, little handprints are imprinted on that flour or on that talcum powder, and people actually see these tiny little handprints.
A teacher and her group of students happened by while our crew was filming the scene.
What do you think is happening then when we're going over
There's a hill.
It's not a hill. Where is the hill?
Gravitational force, scientific explanation.
But it's elevated. It's elevated right there. How do we get across that?
I just find it hard to believe that they're gonna stay here on this plane for like the longest time, and that there's no record of it whatsoever. No parents were claiming.
But they have a mission. They're here on this plane. You're talking about the planes of existence.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, so there's
they have a mission here. They have a mission. But let me tell you something. My sister, that's into all this psychic and the mind game and the third eye and all of that stuff, she really believes in that. One day when she was coming over the tracks, to also come over the tracks like we just did today, she was crossing the tracks going that way, and a limousine was coming this way. And she saw a little girl pushing the limousine. She can describe the little girl in detail. Now, if something that you're imagining, and she describes it the same way every single time. How can that be? The limousine never stopped to pick up this little girl. Where did the little girl go?
Hey, this story is very popular within the city of San Antonio. I would venture to say if the city this size, over 1 million people, that 75% of the people that have been here for any length of time would have some knowledge about what has occurred down there at the spot in the railroad tracks.
I believe the kids are actually pushing the car over the tracks. We sat there, we put the car in neutral, and the car did go over the tracks, and we believe that it was the spirits of the kids.
I seen the kids' fingerprints, their hands all over my car when I put dust on it, and I do believe it's them that they're pushing the car, and they're doing it because they don't want that to happen again.
At this time, we haven't seen anything in our police records to substantiate that this incident ever did occur. So I guess the logical conclusion that anybody would have to this particular accident was it never did happen.
Our information here at the library goes back to 1865. Through the years, I've received numerous phone calls from historians, the staff, the public, readers, people who are interested in the bus crash on Shane and Villamain. Some stories indicate it happened over 60 years ago. Some people say it happened 40 years ago, but there's been no evidence from the records to show that this ever happened.
If the story is not true, what is the explanation for the nearby neighborhood street names, purported to be those of the children who died in the wreck? Our crew contacted local expert Roy Williams, former deputy commander of the Texas Highway Patrol in San Antonio. With 37 years in law enforcement, his credentials are well established. We asked him to help us confirm or deny the story of the children pushing cars over the railroad tracks. Upon exiting his car, Mr. Williams checks the elevation of the road approaching the tracks, apparently an uphill climb. Only after Roy had wiped down the back of his truck does he apply a liberal coating of talcum powder. Roy's a born skeptic, but time and time again, the same thing happens. And just as in the stories we've heard, the car starts its uphill journey and over the tracks.
The first thing we did on the back of the vehicle here, we took a clean cloth and cleaned the back of the vehicle off very well where there wouldn't be any latent prints on the vehicle before we dusted it. As we came across the tracks and after the vehicle stopped, when I got out, I have some very clear prints on the blatant prints on the back that isn't the powder, where we do definitely have prints on the back of the vehicle. I have no other choice to believe it because I know it was clean because I cleaned it and I looked and there was no prints there, and immediately when I get out and look, I'm looking now at these prints where a hand is touched here and also one over here. What else can you say? I have no explanation for it, but I can definitely say there is prints that's made on top of the talcum powder that I've just put on.
Is the San Antonio school bus story just another myth, or is there more to it? Perhaps pushing into the areas of the supernatural that are currently beyond our comprehension, and even further beyond the limits of the bizarre. UFOs, unidentified flying objects, have occupied human thought throughout recorded history. From Roswell and beyond, humans have struggled with the burning question, are flying saucers real or merely a fantasy? To answer this question, we'll consult the researchers and examine their evidence. We will meet the Unarians, who are more than prepared for future visits from aliens. To the casual observer, the phenomenon of UFOs is confusing at best. It is difficult to sort out facts from fiction. There are, however, some researchers who work diligently on hard scientific evidence of UFOs while exposing the scams. Don Ecker, research director for UFO Magazine, is one of these researchers.
The fringe elements in this field have always garnered all the media attention, and it makes it that much more difficult for legitimate researchers to get their position out to the public.
Don Ecker believes that one of the biggest problems is that the media exploits the more sensational stories, such as the alleged alien autopsy. Ecker feels that many of these stories may have been fabricated. Although the evidence found in many UFO stories does not hold up under scrutiny, Ecker has discovered a few cases that cannot be explained, defined as a hoax, natural phenomenon, or optical illusion. In fact, some of the most compelling evidence comes from our own government. In March of 1989, a Maryland ham radio operator intercepted a very strange transmission from the space shuttle. It was the voice of the Discovery pilot transmitting on a secret government channel. This was not the first, nor would it be the last, of NASA's alien encounters.
One of these stories that we were fortunate enough to break involved a shuttle mission that took place in September of 1991. The mission was STS-48, and it involved the Space Shuttle Discovery. While the shuttle was flying at approximately 200 miles above the surface of the Earth, a series of events happened that were unlike anything ever seen from outer space before.
The shuttle's camera captured an object traveling up the screen, suddenly making a sharp right turn, just before a second object flies through its original flight path. But what kind of craft could maneuver so quickly?
My speculation is that it was some type of a Star Wars device that I believe may have been fired at this object. For what reason, I have no idea. But you'll see, just as the object makes the right angle turn, something flashes up on the screen to the point where this UFO would have been. Now, there is nothing that we know of right now, currently, with our technological level, that would allow an object like that under human control to be operating in space. So if it's not something of ours, unless it's a deep black government project, then we have to ask ourselves, what is this UFO? I would suggest that there is something there with an extremely high degree of strangeness.
When UFO magazine broke the STS-48 story, a NASA official publicly claimed on CNN that the anomaly was most likely shuttle bay debris or wastewater dumped into space. Official statements have often added to the confusion.
In certain corridors of power in Washington, D.C., there were genuine fears that these incursions might lead to something else, perhaps, as crazy sounding as it may be, perhaps even an invasion.
We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations.
There are tens of thousands of UFO reports each year worldwide. So, with all this smoke, is there any fire? Stanton T. Friedman, a nuclear physicist, has looked at all kinds of photographs and video images of alleged UFO sightings.
With today's modern technology, it's not too difficult to fake any kind of photographs. You know what computers can do. You see it on television all the time. But that isn't so true for pictures of flying saucers taken 20, 30, 40 years ago, even 10 years ago.
Friedman believes that these older images must be true. This first image is from a movie camera. It shows a white disc-shaped object moving across the screen from right to left. This entire sequence takes roughly 1/20th of a second. As the footage was recorded in 1952, the visual evidence is difficult to dispute. In these photographs, there are two different views of an object which defy explanation. The first is of a disc-shaped object suspended above an Oregon farmhouse. The second is of the same object from a different angle. These images were examined by a research laboratory, and the photos could not be disproved. This next picture was taken by a French military pilot of a very similarly shaped craft. However, it was taken 4 years later and 6,000 miles away. The next set was taken by an official Brazilian Navy photographer. This enlargement shows an outline of an object above the Brazilian mountains.
There are these 50 different companies on this planet that could build things that look like that. But I know of none that back in the 50s could build things that look like that and fly like that. High speed, sharp turn, no noise, no visible external engines, no wings, no tail. If it wasn't built here on Earth, it was built someplace else.
With all of this supposed evidence, it is not hard to fathom the reactions some people may have and the beliefs they may form. Groups such as the Unarians are ready, willing, and able to assist their space brothers in establishing Earth as the 33rd member of the Interplanetary Confederation.
Significance of this site that we call the landing site is that it's the locale for the landing of 32 spaceships. This is the United Academy of Sciences' future campus to be called Star Center Number 1.
A non-profit entity funded by donations, the Unarius Academy of Science teaches students the Unarian philosophy of life. The Unarians distribute their beliefs in written publications printed at their facility and in videos produced in their own television production studio. The library at the Academy is filled with books and videos, all reinforcing the belief that the Space Brothers will land and unite humanity. Although the Unarians are colorful and imaginative, and some may say a bit bizarre, with all the alleged evidence of alien visitors, who knows? They may be right. Stories of UFO sightings amaze us all. But what about personal encounters between extraterrestrials and ourselves? Let's take a look now at what may be actual evidence that aliens are real and that they may implant objects in our bodies without our knowledge. Since man, he has sought answers to the unexplainable. Seeking help from the heavens, he wondered, what lay beyond? And am I alone? Recently, mysterious objects have been discovered and removed from human bodies. How they entered their victims is unknown, but some believe that they are alien implantations, possible proof that aliens are already among us.
If he's out there, I'll find him. They may be from another planet, another star, whatever. Probably very close. In fact, maybe even from here. Why are they here? Why are they doing what they're doing? I mean, this is so bizarre to me.
The world focused its attention on UFOs and meteorites in an often disputed crash outside of Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. This was reflected in the films of the era, dominated by frightening images of aliens seeking to control and take over. What did these aliens bring with them? And what could they give us? Or put into us? And that the nation first gained credence is now fueling the search for extraterrestrial life.
I was introduced to the subject of alien implantation sort of accidentally. I met an investigator by the name of Daryl Sims, who had been investigating this phenomena for a number of years. I am the consummate skeptic because of my scientific background.
His initial reluctance was surpassed by the unexplainable findings brought to his attention. Daryl Sims was contacted by a woman whose case would later bind the doctor to Sims and his cause.
Pat Connolly presented some information to me, and in the course of the discussion, I said, well, what would convince me that you've had this experience that you allege? She responded, I have some x-rays.
These x-rays contained two unidentified objects in the toe of the right foot. Stranger still, it caused the woman no pain. If not for an unrelated hospital visit, she would have been completely unaware of their existence.
He showed me some x-rays of feet with some interesting objects in it. I looked at them and was not impressed.
And then she handed me her medical report, in which states that these objects were some kind of surgical clips that were installed due to previous surgery. The only problem is there was no history of previous surgery.
And I said, well, can you prove that? And he said, well, I just happen to have all the medical records here. If you would like to take the time to go through them, I'll be happy to give them to you. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. you get the patient to California and I will do the surgery free of charge.
Prior to the surgery, Dr. Lear received a call from Sims, who, based on experience with previous cases, predicted the outcome of the surgery.
Number one is you're not going to find any kind of inflammatory response, either acute or chronic. I said, second thing is you're going to find nerve cells, and the wrong kind, and a lot of them.
For Dr. Lear, the surgery was a routine removal of a foreign body. With over 30 years' experience, he expected this surgery to be a normal one. He examined the area and found no visible port of entry. For the first half hour, the doctor probed diligently, looking for elusive objects, and was surprised by an unexpected reaction.
Suddenly, I touched something, and the patient violently objected. Her foot jerked off the table. She came out of the anesthetic.
With enough anesthetic to numb her entire leg, her reaction betrayed the existence of nerve endings. In this case, proprioceptors found only on the surface of fingers and toes.
Why would the tissue surrounding this object be loaded with the nerve cells? Down deep within the guts of a toe, down near the bone, they would have absolutely no function. From one side of the toe, we removed an object that was T-shaped and wrapped with a very dark, gray, dense, shiny membrane.
On one end, the object was rounded like a bullet, perhaps to penetrate the skin. The opposite end was shaped like a barb or fishhook, allowing it to stabilize in soft tissue without moving. But this was only the beginning of the peculiar events in store for Dr. Lear. Agreeing to perform similar surgeries, the surgical team uncovered an identical object from the hand of a male patient. The following year, they would perform more surgeries, each one yielding an implant of unexplainable origin. Each of these objects was connected to a bundle of misplaced nerves. Surrounding tissues showed no signs of reacting to these foreign bodies.
So to find no evidence of any inflammatory reaction whatsoever is very peculiar.
What technique was used to insert these objects into the flesh without causing a reaction and leaving its host completely unaware? Analysis by world-class laboratories, however, did little to determine the origin of the objects. Only one of the elemental building blocks could be identified as an extraterrestrial metal, previously found in meteorites. The significance of these objects to the medical world remains to be seen. Properly replicated, this technology might prevent the rejection response in organ transplantation. The implications for the prolonging of human life could be immeasurable, but there are more immediate concerns. Where do these objects come from? Are they benign flukes, or do they serve another purpose?
There are some popular theories. One is that they may be a tracking device for tracking the individual remotely. Another theory, which I really subscribe to more, is that they may be devices for monitoring certain body functions, as we do with our astronauts, or they also may be for monitoring certain biochemical or genetic functions, or perhaps even monitoring pollutant levels in the body.
But Darrell Sims has his own ideas about aliens and these implantations.
In my view, they lie, and they lie consistently. They do not tell these people the truth. They don't tell them where they come from. They don't tell them a lot of things. They hide things in people's bodies for 41 years and won't even leave a scar and tell you that it's there. Some of the things that are going on in the intelligence community is being held from the American people, and has been. At first, probably for good reason, but not anymore. I don't know whether they're here to help us or save us or fix the planet or whatever. I suspect things different than that.
Whether these visitors are here to help us or hinder us is unknown, though their existence is almost undeniable.
Well, this entire incident has gone on to virtually change my life. How could I ever be so egotistical as to think that we're the only living creature in the vastness of even the visible universe?
Myths and legends, bizarre phenomena, UFOs and aliens. These are things that have inspired us to track down those people, places, and events that are truly different. I'm Jay Robinson, and I hope you've experienced the thrill of the chase. Join us next time as we continue to pursue and to capture ever more strange and unusual stories in this world we call Beyond Bizarre.